You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the animated series episode, The Time Trap. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Jason Tyler. Hey, Father.
Hello.
Folks, be sure to stick around to the end of the show. We have more of your great listener feedback. And be sure to share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow our community of Trek fans, reach even more listeners with this fun content. And another show on the Star Quest Network I want to tell you about is another group of Star Trek fans, but they're the Catholics of Oz. These are our friends from Australia who do a podcast called the Catholics of Oz, and you can find that wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/Oz. That's OZ. So we are discussing The Time Trap. Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens in this episode?
This week, Kirk and the gang are assigned to investigate the outer space Bermuda Triangle, where many ships have disappeared. But while they're at it, a Klingon ship captained by Commander Kor attacks them and disappears. Forced to run by other Klingon ships, the Enterprise heads for the previous ship's coordinates, and it also disappears. They find themselves in the outer space Sargasso Sea of ships in a pocket of time, and ships are there going back 1,000 years. They've learned to cooperate and have strong laws against anyone committing violence. If anyone in a ship's crew commits violence, that ship is frozen for a century. The Klingons then try to escape but fail, but this gives Spock an idea, and he develops a plan for both the Enterprise and the Klingon ship to escape by docking them together. But they've got to do it soon because there's a ticking 4-day clock before their dilithium crystals are kaput. The Klingons agree to the plan, but Spock senses that they're up to something. Kor's ship plants a bomb on the Enterprise that will blow up just after the two ships escape and separate. The plan to get them out is then threatened when a fight starts between a member of Kor's crew and Dr. McCoy, or threatens to start, and the Council of Ships threatens to freeze the Klingons for a century. But Kirk talks them out of it as they need the Klingons to escape. The escape plan goes forward, but a psychic from one of the stuck ships detects the bomb and relays where to find it. Spock then gets the bomb and ejects it before it can explode, so the Enterprise and Kor's ship escape the time trap together. The end.
All right, and Father, what do you think of this one?
Not a bad episode. It's interesting to think about a Bermuda Triangle in space, and neat to see some of the different ship designs they had, and kind of the ship graveyard, and some of the different aliens working together on the Elysia Council. The 22 minutes is not a whole lot of time to develop a story and really move through it, and that's one of the challenges I get always with the animated series.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Jimmy?
I really like this one. I loved this one as a kid. I loved seeing all the different ships from, that they have, a lot of which are reused from designs they made for ships for other episodes they didn't end up using. So you get to see this really cool graveyard of ships in space. I also really liked seeing the council. They say that they have 123 races in their civilization. We only see 12 members on the council, but most of them are races we've seen before. There's even a human on the council because one of the ships that's in the graveyard is the Bonaventure, which we're told was the first ship to have a warp drive. And it looks surprisingly modern, despite that fact. It looks much more like the Enterprise than it does what would eventually become the design for Zefram Cochrane's Phoenix. But we're told it disappeared on its third voyage, so it's natural that there are humans in this group. I like seeing all the aliens. I thought that was really cool. I like one of the two leaders, there's sort of two prominent members of this council. One of them is a Vulcan named Xerius, and the other is an Orion woman named Devna, who is, she's the interpreter of the laws. So she's like, I guess, a judge. But she's played by Nichelle Nichols, and we get to see just the tail end of the Orion slave girl dance. At the end of it, so they confirm she is an Orion. She's not just a green woman. But I thought that was a really interesting role for them to put an Orion woman in. at this early stage. This isn't like today where we've got Devon Attendee and so forth. This is very early on. This is really only the second appearance we've had of an Orion woman. And so to go from, bestial slave girl to interpreter of laws is quite a promotion societally.
I wonder if that's connected, Devana and Devna.
Could be. Yeah. The I thought it does have some flaws. It's obviously based on the Bermuda Triangle, which was a big thing back in the 1970s.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a ridiculously precise Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
When you see it on the star chart, it's like, wow, that's an equilateral, equiangular triangle in space. And it's only two-dimensional. It's not like they call it the Delta Triangle to make it sound different, since Bermuda isn't off Earth in space. But this is a triangle. This is not a delta pyramid. Space is three-dimensional.
Well, Delta's a little on the nose too, right? Because Delta is a triangle.
Is a triangular shape. At least capital Delta is.
Yeah.
Jimmy, have you done a Mysterious World episode on the Bermuda Triangle yet?
Not yet. I've done some research on it, and I plan on doing one, but that one hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, I thought the Bermuda Triangle would be much bigger deal than it was. When I thought of it as a kid, I'm like, wow, this is something big, and just not anymore.
Yeah. By the way, the Klingon commander in this Core. Now here his voice is played by James Doohan.
Yeah.
But so it's not John Holocaust from the TV series, but he is the same character that Kirk met in Errand of Mercy at the planet Organia, and he will show up multiple times in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
3 different episodes, I believe, Deep Space Nine. And actually in Deep Space Nine, I think they reference him having been commander of this ship. So sort of, recognizing and maybe canonizing the animated series if there was any question about that.
Right. Yeah, the animated series is definitely canon. That's the one thing that they've
now
said. Yeah.
When they first made Deep Space Nine, though, that wasn't established yet. Gene Roddenberry, he went hot and cold on this series. At first, it was canon, then he wanted to distance himself from it, and now it's back to being canon again.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you. I like this concept of this episode and the elements of it. It just didn't have time to be developed into a good story. If this were, a better story, I'll put it that way, because it's a good story. If they had time to, in a 42-minute or whatever the original series length was, if they had twice as much time, this could have been a really good, deep, interesting dig into this idea and this council and the no resorting to violence and the conflict there. There was so many good elements in it. There just wasn't time to really, play them all out. And it was, by the time it's done, you get to the end, you're like, oh, that was nice and fast. And that's often been an issue with the animated series.
To cite an example of that, the whole subplot that they've set up with, if anyone commits violence, your ship's going to get frozen for 1,000 years. That just blinks in at the end when off screen, Dr. McCoy has asked a Klingon woman to dance, and it turns out she's the girlfriend of this hot-headed Klingon crew member who then tries to start a fight with him. And that's the act of violence that's going to get the Klingons frozen for 100 years, which is going to throw Kirk's plans to escape off. One thing and this just comes in, it's just like blink, and here's this, we didn't even see Dr. McCoy ask the Klingon woman to dance.
Right.
And so it is very compressed, and they resolve it in a compressed fashion. This would be an element of the show that would be nice if they'd had a little more time to let it breathe and develop, and we could see Dr. McCoy. I mean, actually, there's a little interesting subplot there of, Dr. McCoy has had to deal with Klingons before. What is it like for Dr. McCoy to ask a Klingon woman to dance? That's not something you would just necessarily casually do. And you'd want to ask, what are her feelings about all this? Did she signal to him in some way that she would like to dance, or was he being a gentleman and asking her to dance? as opposed, I mean, like, was he doing it out of a sense of obligation because she signaled she wanted to dance? And so as a gentleman, he would follow up by asking her to dance as opposed to him being the initiator. That would put an extra level of complexity over the situation.
Right.
And it would be nice if they'd let that breathe, but there's just no time to do that. One thing that I would have pointed out to the Elysians if I was, Kirk's legal counsel is, look, they're trying to get out of here. And you think they're going to fail? Okay, fine. Let them try and then punish the Klingons on the other side. Freeze them once they have failed to get out.
Right. Because you're not going to lose anything by letting them try to escape. Because if you don't think they're going to escape, they're not going to escape your justice.
Yeah.
And there was a comment at one point, the council members talking about ships trying to escape before they ultimately accept their fate of being stuck, where they are. And so they seem to have this idea already. Yeah. We'll let the Enterprise try their thing and they'll fail and then they'll stay here for forever.
And nobody thought to work together before this. In 1,000 years, nobody thought, what if we connected two ships together and tried it with the power of two ships?
Well, physically docking two ships and then trying to escape with them docked is not a super intuitive plan. Yeah. Although in 1,000 years, you'd think someone would have thought of it. But then if their dilithium crystals all decay within 4 days, they wouldn't have the ability to get out. What another thing that would have that this would have benefited from some additional time is, okay, so now we know it's possible to get out. We can get those people out of there.
Yeah,
we could send in ships. And even if there's no way to use their ships to get out, which would themselves be interesting to do for study purposes, have all these ancient ships, we can at least send in people and evacuate them now that we know it is possible to get out. And so I would, if I were writing a full length script of this, I would allude to some of those possibilities. In fact, I would probably, as a writer, I'd even bring that in to as extra leverage in the final trial and have Kirk or Spock say, we can even, if this works, we can come in and evacuate people from your civilization who would like to leave.
That's an interesting plot point too, because then you'd have people who don't want to go, people who do want to go. And what is the fate of our civilization based on that we've created based on that?
And, you wonder about this, has anybody tried docking two ships together and everything? How many other times did ships come in two at a time? I mean, it seems that many of the ships could have come in just one at a time. And if one ship is there and if its crystals decay within 4 or 5 days, then, well, it's got no chance to work with another ship.
Right. That's true.
I also do like the dock that they, I have no idea how they got that dock because it's too big to put in a shuttle bay or something, and they wouldn't have been carrying it anyway. So they must have just replicated that or something.
Cannibalized it.
Very quickly in 4 days, they came up with this dock between the two ships to let them fit together.
I was going to say this. Circus. So see, there's an interesting aspect of as they move into this area of the subspace pocket. They go through this vertigo, like there's this, like everyone gets nauseous and poor Sulu falls to the ground.
And they have blurry vision and stuff which was nice, to have an effect, biological effect of crossing into this zone.
Yeah, there's a point when they first arrive, when Kirk is speaking to the council, he says, the records say every ship lost here vanished without a trace. Most logged communication loss and disorientation just before disappearance. My guess was they entered a window to some other continuum. If communications was lost, how do they know?
Well, I would assume the same way with what the Enterprise was trying to do. Kirk had Uhura start transmitting, even though it was going to take 3 weeks to get to the nearest starbase. He said, start transmitting what's happening right now.
Okay, I see.
And so once the phenomenon of the Delta Triangle was known, you would expect other ships to do something similar. In fact, probably spaceships have some kind of continuous recording thing, and if you're going into a dangerous territory, you'd either transmit that or arrange for it to be sent on a data buoy or something like that.
I feel like that's come up before, but it might have been in a novel and not.
No. It's they've done Data Boys on the original series before when they were doing something dangerous. I think that's as early as the Corbomite maneuver.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
One of the things I liked is when the Klingon ship disappears, they've just shot at it. And they do a nice job. Spock says it's clear that the shields on the Klingon ship deflected our phaser, so we didn't destroy it. And then he adds, and the way it disappeared is not characteristic of what happens with their cloaking device. So something else has happened to this thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought for an animated show, that's some really nice logic they're using there.
Right. Covering the basis on that too.
Yeah. Checking out the most likely possibilities and ruling those out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So speaking of Spock, he acts weird in this one.
Yeah.
He's like hugging the Klingons, putting his arms around him like he's like all buddy.
Not exactly, not hugging them,
Not
but
hugging,
he does put his arms over their shoulders, and he is acting buddy, and everyone notices how strange this is. The Klingons don't know him as well as the Enterprise crew, and so they're like, oh, those rumors about him being half human must be true.
Yeah.
So they don't think too much about it. But Bones is like, Captain, Spock is going nuts here. and this is kind of gets us to another writing flaw, which is Spock has sensed that they're up to something. And they've also, and this is actually nice that they don't point this out, but as we learned in the Devil in the Dark episode, Spock's telepathy is stronger if he makes physical contact.
Right.
So that's what he's doing. He's trying to, he's all touchy-feely with these Klingons because he's trying to get more information about what they're up to. But what's the writing flaw is he doesn't immediately report this to Captain Kirk.
Right.
He should have reported it as soon as he sensed they had some kind of ulterior motives instead of playing this Sherlock Holmesy, I'm going to figure it all out myself and then announce the results at the end thing.
Well, again, you gotta hide that information to build up the plot, right? Just like we saw in The Devil in the Dark, also.
Yeah, artificially restrain the information.
Yeah, I think that that's weak writing, and there are ways to have. I think you can also build the drama by having Spock say, "Captain, they're up to something. I don't know what it is. With your permission, I'll effect a ruse to try to pick up more information."
Right.
And then, and so Kirk would know why he's doing the touchy-feely thing. And then we can see him try that and fail. And it's not until the alien psychic, who's also played by Nichelle Nichols, she has 4 parts in this.
Yeah.
It's not until the psychic picks up on where the bomb is that we get the resolution. By the way, I love the bomb. Because this is the 24th century, they're going to have miniaturized technology.
Yep.
So the bomb is programmed to go off when they hit warp 8, 3 minutes after they've gone through this thing and after they've separated. And the bomb is like a little capsule, like you stick in your mouth. It's just a little, it looks like, I don't know, a 1970s Excedrin or something.
So, one of the nice moments is the Devna and Xerius, the 2 council members, are they notice that the Enterprise and the Klothos are trying to escape the thing, and Devna wants Xerius to stop the ships from trying to escape because they could die. She's afraid for their safety, but Xerius says it's their choice. They get, they need to be able to, self-actualize or, make these decisions for themselves. I thought that was a nice, interesting moment where, the Klingon, not the Klingon, the Vulcan leader says, it's not our place to tell them that they can't try. They have to accept, from his point of view, they have to accept the logic of their situation after trying.
It's a nice thing, but I would have been inclined to reverse the characters, because Devna is the interpreter of laws. She's the judge. And so it would make more sense to me to have Xerius as an overprotective Vulcan saying they could die, we should consider stopping them, and have the interpreter of laws saying, nope, they're not breaking our laws, we got to let them do this. Right.
The law says, yeah. It's interesting that the Vulcan is not the interpreter of laws, that it's the Orion, again, as you mentioned before, like.
Well, Orions have a lot of experience skirting the boundaries of laws, so it makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. Who better to be in charge of the laws than than a pirate who knows the law, how to break it anyway. You mentioned we saw the end of Devna's Orion dance. Kirk says, "Oh yes, I've seen Orion women dance many times," and I think, "Oh, Kirk, you dog."
It's all played diplomatically here, but there's subtext there. Yeah.
Yeah, just like when Pike is there, like Orion women dancing is, this is usually probably in places of not great repute. The little shore leave or something for the sailors, but yeah, Kirk. So when we have that moment when Kirk has to convince the council to to not punish the Klothos, because, if you punish them, you're punishing us, as he basically says, and we didn't do anything wrong. And they're like, why are you so intent on leaving? Elysia is a perfect society. And he says, but with all its virtues, it's not home. And home, with all its faults, is where we prefer to be. I thought that was a nice encapsulation of this idea, which often comes up in stories like this, is, why don't you stay in this perfect place? Like The Cage, which was the first episode of Star Trek. Why wouldn't you stay in the cage where we can create this perfect illusory world for you? Because it's not real, because it's not home, because, for all its flaws, home is home. And I thought that was a nice encapsulation of that idea.
Dom, just click your heels together twice and say, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home."
I don't want to stay in Oz. It's too bright here. So we represent.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting encapsulation of that drive, for Kirk. I'm not sure what was driving the Klingons, but it was certainly driving Kirk.
Yeah, and I think this would have been nice if they'd explored it a little more, just by pointing out that the members of the council have grown up there, and they don't know, they don't have feeling for where their people came from the way we do. We've just been there. And I think that they could have fleshed that out a little more, and the reasons for the difference in the perspectives if they'd had a little more time.
I think it was ambiguous because at one point they say time passes very slowly here. Yeah. And I wonder, are these people descendants of, or are they the original people of, or both? I
think it's both. So, you could say either they grew up here, some of them, or it's been centuries since they were home.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've come to accept the situation over the course of centuries. Any other thoughts on this one, Father?
No, I think we covered all the stuff that I had noted. So,
okay. How about you, Jimmy?
Nope.
Okay. So we do have some feedback I mentioned, and this is feedback on our discussion of 765-874 Unification, which was that YouTube video, which was very cool. And Nicholas on Spotify, you can actually leave us comments on Spotify, so please do if you're listening there or watching there, because you can watch this on video. So Nicholas says, as cool as this is, I won't consider this canon or see Star Trek Generations or the 2009 film any different. This is amazing, no doubt, and the craft and work put into it gets nothing but high praise in my regard. I recommend it to my friends. So, as cool as it is, he doesn't take it as canon. So, and I think that's entirely your choice. Paramount hasn't blessed it as canon yet. So,
yeah. There are things Protestants don't accept as canon either. So,
there you go.
Well, at the very least, I think we could say it at most, or at worst, it would be praetor canon and not contra canon, right?
Yeah.
Outside of canon, not opposed to canon, possibly.
That's an excellent way of putting it. And I think fans should do that more.
And since the Roddenberry estate authorized this, I tend to look at it as more canon, but they haven't insisted. So
right. Yeah. And that's where I would land as well.
And Paramount allowed it. So that's the other part of it too. Yeah. In any case, thank you, Nicholas, for your feedback. And now we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Trek, including David G., Kristen B., Doreen M., Randy S., and Justin S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And so that's it from us this time. What did you think of The Time Trap? Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page at facebook.com/starquestmedia, send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, or watch The Secrets of Star Trek on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/starquestmedia. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the Next Generation episode, The Price, which I have no recollection of. So it should be brand new to me. So until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And Father Jason Tyler, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, home with all its faults is where we prefer to be.